the big trends in the advertising ecosystem and bringing it a global perspective.
A brand new and unique global creative network, co-denser creative.
How do you creatively solve a problem or push something, a conversation forward? So I love that a lot.
I just know that's very representative still. I think we have some really strong storytelling.
Impact has been the industry's voice for the past 2 decades. The magazine launched industry-first properties like 50 most influential women in media, marketing and advertising. Impact Person of the Year.
I am deeply touched by the recognition and the honor.
I accept this wonderful award with a lot of pride and happiness.
Top 30 Under 30, which have over time become benchmarks for industry professionals. 22 years of keeping the readers hooked on to its in-depth coverage and analysis. Impact Magazine.
If you live an interesting life, you'll write very interesting stories, which is also the beautiful thing about creative life overall.
Learning can never stop. There is always something new, and I learn from my patients.
And each one of us will use that choice based on the use that you have to put the technology to.
The first film that made me sort of see how a human story and the layers of politics beneath.
पानीपत का युद्ध पढ़कर आने वाले दरोगा लोग इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहे हैं तो उसमें थोड़ा विज्ञान मिश्रित होना चाहिए, ऐसा मेरी अपनी सोच है.
A person may have a very enviable lifestyle, externally appear very successful and happy, but no one really knows what's happening within.
It is not going to kill the supply chain, it is to empower the supply chain. And I'm happy to announce that we are still very much in the pilot stage and beta testing is going on. We are gradually building up our presence little by little as people get more and more confident.
Because of the state of our cities, we have no option but to build smart and resilient cities.
Digital India is more for the poor, underprivileged and the deprived.
And good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Batra's role, but he's on his way, and he told me that let's just begin because we have a gathering of eminent journalists, young journalists, winners, students. Thank you for joining us today. This is the second edition of e4m English Journalism 40 Under 40. I just briefly tell you that we began this because we do some of the most credible awards in the media domain and some of the large format ones. So we thought we should do something for the young journalists, and that's how the idea came about. And our inaugural jury chair was Dr. Sukumar Ranganathan, and he was kind enough to be our consecutive jury chair. Thank you, sir, for that.
This is the second edition of the awards, and the second edition that where I've been the chairman of the jury. I have a feeling they won't want me as chairman of the jury for the third. And the reason is, award ceremonies, first year is really when the award finds its feet. The aim is to encourage participants to get as many entries as you can, and it is also to give as many awards as possible, which is what we did last year. Last year, I think we said we would recognize 40 under 40, and 40 is exactly what we recognized. But this was year 2, and year 2, in my belief, is when award ceremonies start to, they need to start getting serious. Because at the end of the day, if you're rewarding someone, you have to make sure that they meet certain basic criteria. Because if you just want to make up the numbers, it's actually an insult to the people whom you're awarding. And the person whom you select, again in terms of merit, cannot be so vast that these people can't even be in the same room. Right? So I think it's important to ensure that certain basic criteria are met. I think we found 19 people who met that criteria. So the thing to remember is the 19 winners, and I think you're here among the audience. You've really made it through extremely stringent criteria. I'm sorry we couldn't get 40. As Ruhail says, he did push, because I think we've been immune from this to a great extent. But if you look at most digital or TV newsrooms, they're all little bubbles in themselves. They have a certain narrative that they believe in, and every news item that they give you is tailored with that own narrative. And that, to my mind, is not a healthy place for young journalists to give their best. Because to really give their best, young journalists have to retain some of the motivation which makes people enter this profession, right? I mean, why does everyone get into journalism? People get into journalism, sure. I mean, a lot of people get into journalism because they look at an anchor and say, oh, I also want to be like that anchor and everything else. But a lot of people also get into journalism because they want to make a difference. They want to serve society in a certain way. Purpose has to, it's not something, congratulations to the winners. Ruhail, all yours.
Navigate that change and added value to the news that you carry next day. How did that happen? You also said that TV just rumbles around 6 big stories, and on a great day, otherwise it's like a 2-story. They will run the entire 24 hours because the nature of the beast is that. But do you also agree that TV generates the impact and that becomes the agenda for the next day?
Okay.
This is not a TV versus print, I'm just trying to understand.
No, I mean, it's a good question. Can you hear me? Yeah. I have a slightly different point of view. If you look at most news channels, and even the specialized channels, they have 2 kinds of information. One is information that is based on real time. So if you're a business channel, for instance, stock market information is real time. You obviously can't get it the previous day. You get it as it happens, and TV channels do it. The same with stuff that is happening right now. So right now, for instance, if there's an accident outside our hotel, one of the best media to capture it will be TV if they have like, a crew and they get what is happening. But by and large, if you look at the substantial stories that TV plays out in the course of the day, you've already read it in the morning's paper. So rather than print follow TV, the unfortunate thing that happens in our country is that TV follows print when it comes to the big stories. So you've already read the stories. And maybe this is because, again, this is not a print versus TV thing. Some of the smartest people I know work in TV. Maybe it's because they don't invest adequately in research. Maybe it's because they don't invest adequately in specialists who can tell them, these are the areas that you need to be looking at. So a lot of TV journalists, I have a feeling, end up looking at the morning's paper and saying like, hey, this has happened and we've not really covered this. This is an important story and we need to start looking at this. And that is exactly what happens. There are countless examples to this, especially with an exclusive story. The good thing is print still has, when you invest in good journalism and you invest in good journalists and you're willing to invest in allowing them to travel and spend time on stories, you will get interesting investigations, you will get interesting exclusives, and you will get good special stories. And these are the stories that then TV takes and usually, because this is a very bad habit in our country, and usually run it as if it's their own story, giving no credit to the original person who did it. But that is par for the course. You can't expect people to be better than they are. So the cycle has actually been reversed in this country, digital is, it's like one big cesspool. I know that Musk this morning put out a tweet where he said newspapers report what is on Twitter today, right? To some extent, yes. But a lot of times, Twitter amplifies what is in the newspaper and then takes it and builds it and people engage over that news and everything else. And this is ideally not how it should be, because ideally it should be the way Ruhail described it. The news is broken on digital media. TV shows you the news and discusses various aspects of it, and print gives you perspective. It gives you reinforcement, right? And that is in an ideal scheme. But given the fact that many of these platforms are not functioning to their ideal requirements, the truth is actually very, very different.
As a emerging global power, we are the 5th largest economy. But our press is reflecting a more domestic, the focus, print focus is more of domestic. If you see the world global pages, 1 or 2 pages. My point is, how soon do we see our press also having those aspirations of what the country is looking at, and reflect those, the editorial reflects it, that we are also globally, this is our voice globally. When do we see that happening at a bigger level?
I have a vague understanding of what you're asking. I don't think I've completely understood, so if I'm wrong, you have to correct me halfway through. I think Ruhail's question in some ways is, he's looking at me and asking me why we are not cheerleaders, right? That's what you're asking.
Not only, my question is this, global, if you look at, say, again I'll go to New York Times, they also have global, they will say what's happening in Iraq, what is happening in Saudi, what's happening in Dubai. They will have a lot of focus on those, countries as well. But our newspapers don't have global focus. The coverage of global news is insecure. How does that improve and kind of, reflect that we are also, a strong voice in the global scheme of things?
Okay, there are multiple ways in which this can be answered, okay? So let me start. We all have to get real. We're doing very well as a country, but our per capita income is around $2,500, right? The per capita income of a country whom everyone has beaten up, including my newsroom, Canada, is $54,000, right? Reflects in the fact that many Indians want to leave India and go and live in countries like the UK, Canada, Australia for better living conditions. The social and economic indicators, the standard of living, all of these are far higher, right? So the challenges are very significant. So our focus has to be primarily domestic, because our challenges are primarily domestic. To the extent that international news is relevant to us, it gets covered across platforms. It gets covered in print, it gets covered in TV, it gets covered in digital, but our challenges are primarily local. We have very significant challenges. We've addressed some of them very well. Right? Crime, unfortunately, is a very important. A lot of people are interested in crime. Right? I mean, if you look at the metro editions that we run in Delhi, Gurugram, Noida, Ghaziabad, Bombay, Pune, people have three obsessions. There are three things that they are obsessed with more than anything else. And I dare say even in the south, if we had an edition in Bangalore, these are the three things that they would be obsessed with. So the first thing is traffic. The second thing is civic issues, especially garbage collection. You'll still be surprised at the number of emails I get about garbage. Right? I mean, and of course we put our people on it because it is a big issue. Our cities generate far too much garbage and we have no idea what to do with it. The third thing is law and order or crime. So there is no harm in covering crime. I just think that what we have to do is to ensure that there are a lot of important things that are happening and which people need to know about. And it's important to cover those things equally. And these are in a variety of domains. For instance, last week, the Environment Ministry pretty much removed the protection that grasslands get in this country. And grasslands are a very key part of the habitat for a variety of reasons. Is that something that people need to know about? Of course it is something that people need to know about. It needs to be explained to them.
How they want to impact their lives, and how you think we can do more for the mass in general?
Okay. If you want to rise in journalism, you should not use so many sirs. Right? I mean, don't keep calling people sir all the time. I think what we are realizing, and this is probably making it extremely challenging for young people like you, what we are realizing is that these days, most newsrooms, including mine, and I'm sure that's true of many other newsrooms, expect their people to have a certain level of proficiency across topics. Right? I mean, they need to understand a variety of things, and business and economics is certainly one of them. And it's important, and you mentioned TV channels, and I think especially in TV it's very important because you are on screen and you're explaining something which you'll only be able to do if you really understand what's happening. So I think everyone expects a certain basic level of proficiency. So while I did advocate specialization earlier on, I think it's equally important to sort of be versatile enough to have a certain basic level of proficiency across a variety of disciplines. And in India, this includes pretty much anything, right? I mean, sports is such a big part of our lives in this country, sports coverage, and not just cricket coverage. I mean, increasingly a lot of other sports are coming into the limelight. I think people need to understand what's happening across a variety of areas and specialize perhaps in one or two. You have to learn how to put up with things. Because I think and I'm giving you very practical and pragmatic advice, okay? Journalism in India, in the first few years of your job, will look like a horrible, thankless job irrespective of where you're working. Irrespective of whether it is a print newsroom or a digital newsroom or a multimedia newsroom or whatever else, because you're at the very bottom of the pecking order. The work seems hard. The salary seems like a pittance. And a lot of people can't cope with stress. Now this is true across professions. When people leave college and they start working, the first thing they have to learn is how to get used to work life. Because college life is different from work life. Some people, of course, never grow out of it, out of being in college. But you have to get used to a job.
You have to get used to the rhythm of what is required in the course of your work, and put up with it for the first 3-4 years and learn as much as you can, because I think that's how you get into the groove. What I notice happening with a lot of young people who enter journalism is that they get disillusioned very quickly, which is very easy to do, right? Because this is true even in, it's not just true in India, it's true everywhere. Until 5-6 years ago, I used to run a business newsroom.
I think what has changed in the television newsrooms, I think the most important change has been that journalism is no longer limited to one medium. So I think, in fact, when we talk about television news, I think we realize now that news cannot be put into the boundary of the screen you're watching it on. And I think the best news stories are the ones that transcend that. So for instance, the screen or the TV in a sense can be a front page of a newspaper, it can be the home page of a website, and it can be your mobile screen, and it could be a television screen, but is it cable or smart TV? So I think those are the different challenges, but I think what remains essential is the core, which is what's the headline. You'll find that any good editor, you'll come and give them a brief for a story and it can ramble into 10 minutes, but any good editor will cut you short and say, what's the headline? And I think that's really the point of it, that what is the one piece of information you're giving the viewer, the reader, the online, whatever, netizen, that they don't know already. And I think if your story doesn't have that, you need to go back and try again. So I think that's really different, but I think the various things you have to compete with, being a video journalist, being a print journalist, being a television journalist can be daunting for newcomers. But I think if they realize that basically it's about the basic, how good your story is, that would help. And that's the biggest change you're seeing in newsrooms around you now, that no newsroom is limiting itself anymore to being just television or just print or just digital, it's integrating. So you'll hear integration and convergence as the big buzzword now for the next years ahead.
One other thing that we often hear about television is that television is toxic, there is no news, it's just an amplification medium. How do you respond, how would you respond when people label television as these?
I think the biggest enemy of television news has been television itself. So I think I do have to say that I would agree with many people who feel that there is some element of television which has become toxic. It began with what was quite new to Indian television about, say, 15 years ago, the talk format. And when it began, it was exciting. It seemed to be a situation, and at NDTV we were lucky that we had a situation where even the Prime Minister had joined a debate once on the big fight. We had Mr. Arun Jaitley and Mr. Kapil Sibal who often would agree to come and debate with each other on any of our shows. So those were times when you had people of political gravitas and intellect, which would have very strong opinions of their own, but would also have the dignity and the intellect. I think again this boils down to the intellect of listening to another person's point of view, of accepting that this person who is debating with me is not necessarily someone who is my enemy. But I think after Talk TV evolved, or we had an outbreak of channels and very different politics at some point coming in as well, that it became about a political enmity, and that I actually won't confine that to politics. It became about who scores the most points. My point of view is better than your point of view, and it's who can shout louder. And once that fueled into what I would really say is toxic, is a toxic TRP system, it just became worse and it spiraled out of control. So I think that is a problem television news has faced. It's a problem television news has to fix. I think there is some realization of that happening now, and I hope there will be a change, and the change will come really from the people who are watching when they say that we feel this is not what we want to watch on our screens.
दिशा में एनडीटीवी किस तरीके से काम कर रहा है और आने वाले दिनों में किस तरीके से आप इस चैलेंजेस को फेस करें?
ऐसे एनडीटीवी के ज़्यादातर वो फेक सर्वेज आते हैं जो opinion polls या ऐसे कुछ आते हैं. That's really because of the NDTV credibility in that area. So usually the focus so far has been on fake news in the newsroom. So how to make sure, because especially जैसे आप आपको पता है that often viral videos come. So straight away the newsroom wants to put it on air. Ki this is an earthquake somewhere or this has happened here. But we have seen in some situations, especially in tense situations like riot situations or communal situations, putting fake videos on air has very, very real consequences. So our real focus has been on how to fix fake videos, fix meaning make sure that they don't get on air. That has been our big worry. We haven't really looked at whether NDTV clips are being misused on digital media. As soon as we get to know of it, of course, we issue statement, legal rights, but it hasn't been a major focus yet because the big worry has been how to stop fake videos from going on air. I mean, that is an economic reality. I think Sukumar will agree with me on that. We all need ads to pay salaries. We need ads to have budgets, news budgets. We need ads for various reasons. So we all try to be creative about it so it doesn't actually interfere with the content. But I agree that in some places it sometimes covers a huge portion of the screen. But it really is something that is an economic model which until it's fixed or until we come up with alternative ways. I mean, one way of course is subscription, but most people are used or prefer to see their news free. So as long as that is happening, the only model of revenue is actually through advertisements. So there's not much choice left there.
And you also see sometimes so many panelists and speaker at a different forum said this is a Ravan school of journalism. Anyway.
No, the Ravan school is... I think it's interesting, but I don't think an AI anchor can ever replace a real anchor, but I think it's interesting. It's an interesting model, it's an interesting gimmick for now. Let's see how it unfolds. AI, of course, can be used in newsrooms, but it always, I think it needs a human intelligence as well for the editorial decisions. So, I mean, of course, I think I'm sure it can help in maybe compiling lists and news lists and things like that. But I don't think AI anchors is something we've...
फिलहाल हमने इसको entertainment के लिए बनाया हुआ है.
Our hard sense in ownership of media channels affects the content of news channel.
I don't know if I should answer that or you should answer that.
Alright, let's go to the next one. Okay. Yes.
I'd just say for any brand, of course, the biggest bonus is credibility, and I'm sure that any management will be looking very carefully at that aspect. But ultimately, the decision of the judge of credibility is not the person in the newsroom, but all of you.
How do you foresee AI, being used in media, say in the future? Because I was sitting with an editor, and he told me that while he manages to do just 3 posts, his rival is able to do 1,000 posts just using the AI. So how do you see it playing out in the future?
See, I think it can be used it will be used much more in a conveyor belt way. So I think there will be that element of it, of course, that it is efficient, there's a speed. So it will be incorporated in newsroom operations, but I still believe, and maybe I'm old-fashioned.
My fellow jury members, young journalists, it's a pleasure, privilege and honor to be here. I'm only going to tell you about the jury process itself.
Batra ji, Shri Sukumar Ranganathan ji, Sonia Singh ji, ladies and gentlemen, in Kerala we say, Allavarkum ende vandanam. First of all, my gratitude to Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Exchange for Media and Business World, for the invitation to participate in this event. My hearty congratulations to all the winners of today's awards. In celebrating your success, we are celebrating the lofty ideals of journalism, which is accepted all over the civilized world as the 4th pillar of democracy. In our own tradition, a media man, particularly a reporter, means one who has developed the capability to exercise full self-restraint, that is dam, and has overcome the feelings of ill will or affection. This is the literal meaning of Sanjay, the legendary character of Mahabharata, who was entrusted with the task to report the war between Kauravas and Pandavas. Generally, it is assumed that Sanjay was the name of the character, but the commentators have opined that in this context, Sanjay is not used as a pronoun, but it is a noun used for a professional who can report the events without any bias or prejudice, without any fear or favor. I am sure you would agree that Sanjay, who was a trusted employee of Dhritarashtra, the Kaurav patriarch, while performing his duties, acted fairly without showing any favor or bias towards the warring groups. It is this quality of the journalist that deserves recognition and celebration. Even otherwise, in Indian tradition, it has been asserted, धर्मस्य विधाया neko, ये वे प्रोक्ता महर्षि भी स्वयं स्वयं आश्रित्य स्वयं स्वयं विज्ञानम आश्रित्य दमस्तेषाम परायण. There are so many interpretations, commentaries, definitions of religions, and the erudite people of the past, they all agree on one thing, that self-restraint, control over your desires, your prejudices, your biases, that is the highest religion. I would also like to express my deep appreciation for the sincere and hard work of the jury chaired by Shri Sukumar Ranganathan to select the young leaders in English journalism. The lofty standards set by the jury to ensure that only the best of the best would figure in the list is evident from the fact which has been pointed out earlier, that only 18 or 19, I have the figure of 18, only 18 have been selected for the awards. I am informed that this initiative, that is the second edition of e4m, has been curated by Shri Ruhail Amin, Senior Editor, Exchange for Media. We all know that Exchange for Media has been reporting on media marketing, advertising, and communication for the last 22 years. And its editorial platforms have been receiving respect and acceptance all over the country. Moreover, its English Journalism 40 Under 40 Awards, which we are going to present, recognize professionals across print, television, and digital media. I am happy that the list of awardees encompasses almost all sections in the media fraternity, namely editors, reporters, anchors, journalists, marketing and digital media professionals, videographers, and others. We live in a mass media, or we can also say social media age, where the role of responsible media has acquired even more significance. Thanks to the modern trends in media, we see a plethora of channels using various technologies, supplying information and views. In every democracy, media serves as a primary source of information, offering citizens regular updates on local, national, and global events. News media also functions as a watchdog, and its institutions and often sets the agenda to help society to decide the issues that need to be discussed. But above all, media educates the public on complex issues, encourages healthy debates, and helps in informed electoral choices. We know that free media is absolutely vital for a healthy democracy. Media also has the duty to promote social harmony and national unity, which are the prerequisites for any progress towards prosperity. Objective, free, and fearless are the adjectives that have been used traditionally to articulate what people expect from media. But one is tempted to ask whether in this age where what bleeds leads is mostly a taint setter, and many media organizations hire consultants who offer pre-scripted fear-based topics. How many media professionals can still afford to uphold the time-tested journalistic ideals? The jargon used for this practice is known as stunting or just add water reporting. I do not ask about unbiased journalism because the majority of the journalists now do not really have a role in deciding what is to be printed and what is to be left out. But this is not a new malaise. Many years ago, a leading media personality, H.L. Mencken, said, "Freedom of press is limited to those who own one." I also recall a famous speech made by John Swinton of New York Times, not recently, in 1880, when a banquet was organized in his honor, and a fellow journalist raised a toast in the name of independent press. The response of John Swinton is worth quoting, reading. He said, "There is no such thing at this date of the world's history in America," and he is talking about America in 1880. "There is no such thing at this date of the world history in America as an independent press. You know it and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinion. And if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinion out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things. And any of you who would be so foolish as to write honest opinions would be out on the streets looking for a new job. If I allowed my honest opinions to appear in one issue of my paper before 24 hours, my occupation would be gone. If these remarks were made in the last decade of 19th century, one can very well imagine the pressure and the difficulties to which the present day journalists are subjected to in 23rd century. The increasing trend of media being embedded to political ideologies or business interests reminds us of the opinion of an English author who said, "The controversy over freedom of speech and of the press is at bottom a controversy of the desirability or otherwise of telling lies." He further said, "The right to report contemporary events truthfully or as truthfully as is consistent with the ignorance, bias, and self-deception from which every observer necessarily suffers. But we should never forget that in the present age, the court of public opinion moves much faster than the courts of law. What society now experiences is an infocalypse that reminds me of what an American author, John Nesbitt, said: "We are drowning in information, but starved for knowledge." With business models in media being drastically altered, the struggle to survive profitably sometimes compels media to resort to a form of sensationalism or even fake or paid news. As a result, we have progressed from stories to narratives. The saying at present is that fake news is cheap to produce, genuine journalism is really expensive. A solution to this needs to come from the media themselves, because it is the media's self-respect and dignity that is now at stake, and it is high time that it is restored. I do hope that the award winners and their future work will contribute more to the restoration of the grand stature of the media. The winners, when I say grand stature of the media, something which happened in my office when I was industries minister came to my mind. A very leading industrialist of the country was there waiting in the room of my private secretary. And that group owns a leading newspaper. And my staff, they behaved normally with it. But a few minutes later, a senior correspondent of the paper, which was owned by this group, he entered into the office without any prior appointment. And my PS immediately got up. And with great courtesy, he asked him to sit down and said, "I will just be back in a minute." He came inside and told me that so and so is there. "Can I bring him immediately?" I said, "Please bring him." And this leading industrialist of the country later told me that that gave me the idea that why we should not take up the responsibility of being the editors. The winners of today's awards can be genuinely proud of their achievements, especially in the light of the social impact of their work. However, These awards also bring on them a great responsibility with regard to ethical and professional standards in news reporting, as well as the social impact of every word that is printed or broadcast. It was just over a century ago that the celebrated editor C.P. Scott wrote a piece to celebrate the 50 years of the Manchester Guardian, in which he reminded us that comment is free, but facts are sacred, reminding those in his profession about the much needed self-imposed restraint in comments. He said, "It is well to be frank. It is even better to be fair." We need to ask ourselves, how strictly do we follow this rule? At this decisive juncture, when the boundaries between news and views are blurring and marketing concerns override editorial propriety, those in the media have a duty to be vigilant to safeguard the reputation of journalists. Like everyone else, the journalists also have an obligation to perform their duties in a manner that serves the larger interest of the society and promote the constitutional ideal of human dignity. The journalists who do their duty upholding the ideals and ethics deserve to be recognized and lauded, need to be celebrated. Shri Anurag Batra and his exchange for media, they deserve our appreciation for this initiative. And if I may quote our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, who said, "Our newspapers and magazines should have global reputation. We should reach digitally across the world. Indian institutions," this is more important, possibly he was talking about you, Indian institutions should give away literary awards like they are giving in different parts of the world. This is the need of the hour and necessary to the country. Finally, I would like to refer to a beautiful Sanskrit verse in which Narad Muni describes the meaning of truth. He says, "Satyasya vachanam shreya, satyadapi hitam vade, yad bhuta hita mat yantam, etat satyam matam mam." Telling the truth is best, but more than that, tell those things which benefit everybody. I hold that thing which is beneficial to large community is actually truth. I hope all of us, including our media people, will hearken to this call and will ensure that ultimately it is our Rashtriya Dharma to pursue public good through our actions. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now headed towards the awards ceremony. Requesting the Honorable Governor of Kerala,
So this award actually goes to the India Today group, Kalipuri, Supriyo Prasad, Rahul Kanwal, because they are giving us a platform where we can do the stories that we want to do and show the truth. So to India Today.
Ladies and gentlemen,
bring up a very enthusiastic cheer for Akshita Nandagopal, Deputy Editor, India Today TV.
To be recognized, considering we're everyone's favorite punching bag. Once in a while to get recognition is great. Thank you to e4m. Thank you to India Today Group, because hard work and merit means nothing really without opportunities. So thank you to India Today. Thank you.
The winner is Anisha Mathur, Senior Special Correspondent, India Today TV.
Unfortunately, Ms. The next award goes to...
And the winner is Deepak Bopanna, Principal Correspondent, Times Group.
Mr. Bopanna couldn't be here to accept this award. He's not here, but he still did win the award, so we can at least clap for him. How lovely is that?
This is a wonderful recognition. Thank you to Exchange for Media, to the jury, and to Hindustan Times for giving us all the opportunities to rise and shine. Thank you.
Also, of course, thank everybody at HT. It takes a whole village to put together good journalism, reporters, photographers, editors. So thank you to everyone.
India Today TV.
Thanks a lot to Mr. Arif Mohammed Khan, to Mr. Ranganathan, and to Dr. Batra and the entire jury. Well, I would like to, of course, thank the India Today Group for providing me the opportunity to tell the stories that I wanted to tell over the past 1 decade, without any fear, without any hindrance. And of course, journalism these days is almost a thankless job. Most often we get trolled and abused. So it's always nice to get some sort of recognition and appreciation. And the fact that it is 40 under 40, so it does give us a lot of impetus to move on and carry forward with the kind of job that we're doing. So thank you so much.
It's not only the journalists that troll, award givers and organizations that give awards also get trolled. Don't worry, keep doing your job.
The next award, I'd like to thank the jury chair for joining us on stage. Thank you very much. And the next winner is...
And the winner is Milan Sharma, Special Correspondent, India Today TV.
Unfortunately, Milan Sharma couldn't be here to accept the award. We have Miss Sneha Murdani accepting the award on her behalf. Lovely. India Today TV.
Give Pooja a bigger round of applause.
First, this is twice in a row, so it's an absolute privilege. I want to thank Exchange for Media jury for considering me, for considering India Today television journalist. It means a lot. And I think I'll just say one thing amid all the hate that is thrown at television news. Look at ourselves here. We are under 40 journalists, and each one of us has been able to prove by example and by our work that good work is still happening, good work is still possible. And just remember one thing, that we put in more than our hours, more than our strength, more than our days to do the work that we believe in. We fight for it, we fight for reforms in the industry. So today, let's appreciate ourselves and continue to stay on, continue to keep working, and cheers to all of us. Congratulations to all of us.
Very well, Coach Verma. A big round of applause.
appreciate, but I can't say anything beyond thanking the people who've been behind this. My mother who's here, all my friends and family, all my elders and mentors, Sonia Singh, Chetan Bhattacharjee, Nidhi Razdan, Dr. Pranoy Roy, who've been the guiding lights throughout. I've learned journalism from these people, and whatever I do will be because of them. Thanks very much. Then very importantly, I want to thank all those people who don't come on camera, but they're behind the work that we do. All the camera people, Xavier Thomas sir is here today, all those in the PCR, production, graphics, admin, everybody at NDTV who are not seen on the camera, but they make this possible. Thanks very much yet again. Thanks e4m. Thank you.
I'd also just like to say a very big thank you for giving journalists recognition and a platform like this. I think I really hope that it inspires us and it enables us to do our job, which is journalism, tell stories without fear or favor, something which is common nature for us at NDTV. And I just want to say thank you, I think, to my family, because I'm receiving this award as a new mother, and God knows it's not easy. It takes a village, like another colleague just said. So thank you to my family, you know who you are, you give me the legs to stand on. And thank you to NDTV, because you've given me the wings to fly. And thank you very much, Sonia, especially to you, because I think it's leaders like her who've enabled women like us to be able to do it all. So thank you.
Data and Political Economy Editor, Hindustan Times.
My sincere gratitude to the organizers and the jury who recognized my work, and all of us. And I would especially like to thank my entire newsroom. My editor-in-chief is here, because at the end of the day, what you see is collective work. And the only thing I want to say is, I mean, a lot of us have said about the journalists always being criticized. I think in a way it helps also, because nothing helps like baptism by fire. It is a very challenging time for journalists. And in a way, it's good that we continuously try and improve and make ourselves relevant. Thank you.
Great. The next award goes to...
And the winner is Ruby Dhingra, Managing Editor, News Checker.
Thank you very much to e4m and to the jury. A lot of things have been said here earlier about the hard work that we put in, but it really does take a village. The entire team of people who are supporting you back at your home, the video editors, the camera person. So I'd like to thank NDTV, where I learned everything, and News Checker, where now I'm teaching whatever I have learned to young journalists like yourself. There were many questions earlier before the event started.
All the aspiring journalists, this could be you in a couple of years, so please, let's keep the spirit high.
Hi, just a couple of things. This is coming at a very important point for me, because it's about the reporting that we have done, many of us here have done, for the channels where we work with, for the opportunities that we have got. As an intern, I started with NDTV. I stand here today, very grateful for the opportunities. I hope many of you who are sitting here will get the opportunities and the bosses like we have got, who have pushed us to the limit. Sonia pushes, others push. We are pushed to the limit, and we are so grateful for the opportunities. Thank you everybody who is sitting here, for the job you do, day after day after day. Thank you very much. I also have to thank my husband who's here, my parents and my in-laws. There's a reason why I have to do this. It's my first year back after my maternity leave and it feels like I'm starting all over again. Thank you very, very much.
Bigger round of applause for Priya.
Thank you so much to the jury and thank you to everyone in India today, our seniors, Arun Puri, Kali Puri, my boss, Supriyo Prasad, Rahul Kaval, our news director, and the entire team at India Today, because whatever we do, it's always about teamwork. Also, I want to take this opportunity to thank my family because it's not easy with a little child. You come to work, you spend in so many hours and beyond that as well. So without their support, it's not possible. You know, I just want to say something. When we came to this event, I sort of heard somebody from the audience talk about the fact that television does not cover health. And I want to say that my focus has always been health. I'm a health journalist. I also, in fact, anchor a health show. I conceptualize a health show and I focus on health stories. And this is a misconception. You just need to watch the right television news channel at the right time and then you'll know. I guess. Thank you so much.
I can be healthier and I'm sure I'll be healthier. But everywhere I speak of two things. Actually three. One is the fact that global warming is for real, sir. I read a Time magazine cover 2 weeks back where it talks about oceans and how oceans are shrinking. It is very bad for the planet. Second is I talk about kindness. I think I've known Shri Arif Mohammad Khan ji for many years, thanks to Dr. Balla. And he's been very kind to me with his time, with his patronage. Mr. Nayak, who I met 23 years back, has been, my father-in-law wife. My wife doesn't come to any. Yesterday she came specially to meet him for 5 minutes because she's very, very fond of him. So they're very kind to me. So I recommend this book which I read in March only, called Humankind by Rutger Bregman, the Dutch philosopher.
That you want to go to Supreme Court, then who has, you should explain why you have spent those 40 lakhs if you have not gone to the court so far. Was it for seeking legal opinion or was it for some other purpose? The payment of 40 lakh rupees.
So they go to court, that is
who is, I'm saying it is good if they have some confusion in their mind. Telangana government had the confusion in their mind. I think in Tamil Nadu also, they had gone to the Supreme Court, confusion has been cleared. So their confusion will also be cleared. Welcome.